My name is Vincent Okamoto. I am privileged to be your MC today. We tried to get Bruno Mars and Halle Berry, but they couldn't be here. So apparently I was the next up, and I'm very happy to be here, folks. We feel very fortunate to be given the opportunity to host the Wall That Heals. We were able to bring over 1,000 Gardena High School students, Perry Middle School students, and Denker Elementary students here, along with students from other high schools in the area, so that they could learn about the Vietnam War and the sacrifices that were made by our men and women in uniform. We've had the wall open for 24 hours a day since about 6 o'clock on Wednesday. We were privileged as the Gardena PD here to be part of the escort, and we had numerous veterans, agencies, and organizations that rode with us also. It was quite the sight to see. We know we have a great opportunity to provide a way for those far and wide to come and visit this wall, which is a scale replica of the actual wall in Vietnam or in Washington, D.C. Many of those people will never be able to travel to D.C., and we're thankful to give them the opportunity to come here and experience the wall. As a personal story, I brought my father here yesterday. He was in the Navy in Vietnam. Never talked about it. He came here and he met a guy named John, and he talked for an hour and a half. The rest of my family looked at me and said, "Have you ever heard this story?" I looked at them and said, "No." You know, so obviously there's a magic to this wall. Even though this is a replica, we're very thankful that we were able to host it, and we hope that you guys enjoy this experience. There was a lot of hard work getting the wall here, and we have a lot of people to thank. The staff that accompanied the wall from its previous stop, I'd like to call them up here real quick. Tim Tetz. Tim, where are you? Come on up, Tim. Kaylee Wright. Let's see, where's Kaylee? Here she comes. And Harold Smith, more affectionately known as Bud. We'd like to bring them up here and recognize them. Come on up.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Richard.
No problem. Thank you, Bud. Thank you. Just for clarification, that's Bud and that's Kaylee. On behalf of the Gardena Police Department and everyone here in the city, you know, we'd like to recognize them for helping to bring the wall here and physically bring it here, and for all the work they did prior to getting it here. I'd like to present them with a patch and a challenge coin from the Gardena PD.
On behalf of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, 37 years ago, Jan Scruggs created a wall, and it became the national touchstone on which a generation and a decade of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen healed, and their families came. In 1996, we took this wall on the road, and it's incredible to see the healing nature. It's incredible to see the opportunity for us to educate and for us to honor and remember all those who served and sacrificed in Vietnam. On behalf of our organization, on behalf of all those who support us, I thank you for the incredible host and the incredible effort you put forth today, and I appreciate all you've done in making Gardena be an incredible home for the Wall That Heals for the last week. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. Like Tim said, there are numerous names on this wall. As of yesterday, 58,318 names, to be exact. And again, thank you all for being here today and helping us to experience this. And at this time, I'd like to call up Gardena Mayor Tasha Serta for a few words. Mayor Serta.
Good morning, everyone. I'd just like to thank all of you who took the time to come out this morning and pay a special tribute to the fallen Vietnam veterans whose names are upon this wall, as well as thank all of you who served in Vietnam, like my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Medina, and many of you who are in attendance today. as well as all of our other veterans here. We're very fortunate to have this replica wall in our community to honor those we lost, educate our youth on the history of the Vietnam War, and remember the family and friends who lost loved ones during this time. I feel privileged to have this wall come to Gardena, as it's my understanding that Gardena is one out of 3 cities in California this wall will be displayed at as it travels across the United States. And I'd like to thank all of you who made this possible: the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Committee, the staff here at the City of Gardena, and the many volunteers who made it possible for our community to come out and visit the wall over the past few days, 24 hours a day. In 2018, the Gardena City Council recognized veterans at all of our city council meetings, and we also have a website called the Gardena Honored Veterans, where we recognize our hometown heroes in our community, and it's just our way of saying thank you to them. So as you leave today, take a moment to walk along the wall, read some of the names, and I know it can be a little overwhelming because, as was mentioned, it's over 58,000 names on the wall, but 24 of those names have been identified as people who live in the city, people who had lived in the city of Gardena, some of our residents here. And I'm proud of those who made the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we're enjoying today. So thank you again for being here today.
At this time, we're going to have the Los Angeles Police Emerald Society Pipes and Drums Unit with their rendition of God Bless America. I don't know about you folks, but there's always something about bagpipes and drums that gets to me. I think it's my Irish heritage. Madam Mayor, thank you for your kind words and the introduction. There were 132 organizations that applied to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund to host the Wall That Heals this year. And out of those, only 39 were chosen, and Gardena was lucky enough to be one of those. Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who represents the 43rd Congressional District, was one of those who applied, and she chose the city of Gardena as our host city. We are honored to accept. Congresswoman Waters served as the honorary chairperson for this event, and we would like to bring her up at this time for a few words. So please welcome Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
Thank you to all the veterans in attendance today for all you have done for our nation. To our Vietnam veterans in particular, on behalf of our entire nation, I want to say welcome home. I am so pleased to be here, both in recognition of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War and to celebrate the arrival of the Wall That Heals here in Gardena. There are roughly 7,500 veterans, Vietnam veterans, living in the 43rd Congressional District alone, and over 570,000 in the state of California. It is a great privilege to be with all of you once again. As some of you may know, in 2012, President Obama signed a proclamation declaring that the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War would be commemorated with a 13-year program to honor and give thanks to a generation of proud Americans who saw their country through one of the most challenging times we have ever faced. This commemoration period began on Memorial Day 2012 and extends through Veterans Day 2025. The inaugural event for this commemoration was held on May 28, 2012 at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. That memorial is a symbol of honor, recognition, and remembrance of the more than 58,000 servicemen and women who sacrificed their lives or who remain missing to this day. More than 5.6 million people visit the memorial each year to honor the 7 million living Vietnam veterans, the more than 9 million American families affected by the war, and the service members no longer with us. Not long after the memorial opened, it became clear that families across the country, not just those visiting Washington, wished to pay their respects to Vietnam veterans. To accommodate those Americans, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund built an iconic replica which travels across the country as part of the Wall That Heals exhibit, stopping in approximately 38 communities each year. About 2 years ago, I began conversations with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund and local officials here to determine if we could bring the Wall That Heals to the 43rd Congressional District. The residents of this community and this state deserve the opportunity to say thank you to some of the bravest Americans who have ever lived and remember those that may have lost. With the help of the city and a talented group of volunteers and traveling memorial replica is with us here today in Gardena, California. In my opinion, full and appropriate recognition of our Vietnam veterans is long overdue, and the war often separated friends and families, both physically and politically, and created divisions which have taken years to heal. Our service people often returned home to communities conflicted about the reasons for that war in a country so far away. Many veterans have spoken about how difficult this was and how much harder the feeling of being ignored and isolated by their home communities made the healing process. No matter what you may have felt about the war, we should all honor and acknowledge the sacrifice made by our veterans who answered their country's call, who served and who sacrificed. I want all of the Vietnam veterans to know, even if you've never been told before, that this country appreciates you, we respect you, and we love you. A big round of applause for our Vietnam veterans. However, our appreciation and respect for veterans must be expressed not just with words. We must express this appreciation with action. In 2017, less than half of the century's more than 20 million veterans were employed. Veterans are twice as likely as the average American to be chronically homeless. At this point, the number of homeless Vietnam veterans, male and female, is greater than the number of soldiers who died during the war. Vietnam health care was not there for our veterans when they returned, and even sometimes on the battlefield. But veteran health care, including mental health care, is also of the utmost importance now. The mental health statistics are alarming. Each day, about 20 veterans lose their life to suicide. Post-traumatic stress syndrome affects 30% of Vietnam veterans. Furthermore, we must provide all veterans with access to quality education, which gives them the opportunity to live a fulfilling and successful life off the battlefield. I've always believed that one of our greatest responsibilities in Congress is to ensure a better quality of life for our veterans. While that starts with commemorating their bravery and sacrifice, it cannot and it does not end there. Though I now serve as the ranking member of the House Financial Services Committee, I originally served on the House Veterans Affairs Committee when I first came to Congress. To this day, I'm so very proud of the work I was able to do as a member of that committee. Specifically, I'm honored to have led the effort to establish the Center for Women Veterans at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Almost 25 years later, the center is still doing wonderful work to make sure the department effectively meets the needs of our female veterans. I've also introduced legislation such as Ensuring Education Quality for Veterans Act, which closes a loophole that incentivizes for-profit colleges to take advantage of our veteran students. In addition, last year, I introduced the Protecting Benefits for Disabled Veterans Act, which protects benefits for veterans who are unable to work due to a service-connected disability. Finally, veteran homelessness is a national tragedy. To put an end to this crisis, I've introduced the Ending Homelessness Act of 2017, which provides immediate emergency funds and programs to meet the needs of the homeless population. I've introduced these bills, and I will continue to use the power of my office to address veterans' needs because I believe it is my duty and the duty of Congress to support those who have sacrificed the most to support this country. To those here today who are not veterans, here's what I want you all to know. They are some of the most driven, talented, and dedicated people in the world. More than 20,000 veterans live here in the 43rd Congressional District, and California is home to more veterans than any other state, almost 2 million. In Los Angeles County, more than a third of all veterans were on active duty during the Vietnam War. Think about all of these veterans for a moment. Think about how much they bring to our communities. Think about the leadership skills they have developed and the knowledge they have acquired. They are brave, they are selfless, and they are an asset to our communities and our state. So I hope each and every veteran and each and every family member of a veteran knows how much we appreciate what you have done and how much you continue to do. I hope you all know that we will continue to support you as you have supported us. We honor your courage, your sacrifice, and your devotion to duty, neighbor, and country. Allow me to conclude with a special thank you to all the people who made the Wall's 5-day visit to the South Bay happen. I want to thank you again to Tim Tetz and Callie Wright from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Thank you to Bud Smith, who is in his 4th year and 10th week of voluntarily driving the tractor trailer containing the Wall and Education Center from coast to coast. Give him a big round of applause. Thank you, Mayor Serta. Thank you, Mayor Serta, for your leadership. Thank you, Manager Ed Medrano, the Gardena Police Department, and a special thanks to this woman who never tires of singing the song of Gardena, a woman who loves Gardena, I think, more than anybody else, a woman who, in her capacity, has done more and continues to do more to bring attention to this wonderful city. Please give Kelly Fugio a big round of applause. Where is Kelly Fugio? Please walk this way, Kelly Fugio. She won't like my doing this. She's always hiding in the shadows. But there comes a time when she must come forward so that we can show our appreciation for her leadership and her work. Big round of applause for Kelly Fugio. And so this wonderful team of Tasha Serta, the entire City Council, Ed Medrano, we're very appreciative for what you have done here today. Kelly Pujo is Director of Parks and Human Services, and she has made this visit a reality. Again, her energetic and dedicated volunteer committee has done an incredible job organizing this week's activity. Thanks also to all of the volunteers from the South Bay and beyond who provided a motorcycle escort for the Wall's arrival on Tuesday and have been holding down shifts even overnight during the Wall's stay. As a small symbol of my support, I was proud to present the flag flying over there on the south side of the park, representing the 50 United States of America to the city of Gardena. It was flown over our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. on March 15 and was dedicated, quote, in honor of the wall that heals. Visit to the city of Gardena, April 2018, quote, unquote. I will fly proudly. The flag will rather fly proudly until the wall comes down on Sunday afternoon. Last but not least, when we finish the program, if there are any Vietnam veterans here today who have not received our 50th anniversary commemorative pin, please come see us at the table right over there, and I will be honored to present one to you on behalf of a grateful nation. So I want to thank all, and I want you to know how proud I am as a member of the Congress of the United States of America to give support to all of our veterans, but especially pay attention to our Vietnam-era veterans, because we must say over and over again, we welcome you, we love you. Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker. You'll forgive me, I'm going to read this because I don't want to miss anything. So we are privileged to have one of our hometown heroes with us today to deliver our keynote address. Vincent Okamoto was a leader early in life. He was a senior class president at Gardena High School in 1961, where he lettered in track and football and was a member of the Men's Honor Society also. He later attended El Camino College and the University of Southern California. This is usually where people start doing the... I wasn't privileged enough, but it's okay. He first enrolled in the ROTC program at USC and later earned his commission as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army. After receiving Ranger training, Judge Okamoto was given orders to report to Vietnam. He distinguished himself in August of 1968 while serving as a platoon leader with an infantry unit near Dao Chang. A ground attack was launched against the battalion's night location by 3 reinforced People's Army of Vietnam and Viet Cong companies. The initial assault destroyed a strategic location in their perimeter. Under heavy automatic weapons fire, small arms, and rocket-propelled grenade fire, Okamoto moved 5 of his men to restore this vital position. Realizing the need for supporting fire, he ran to a partially destroyed armored personnel carrier and manned its machine gun. After the weapon malfunctioned, he dashed through a hail of enemy fire to send, to a third carrier to place suppressing fire on enemy soldiers, undoubtedly saving many men that day. Here in the Distinguished Service Cross, 3 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, and the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry as he was inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame in 2007. Vincent Okamoto returned from Vietnam in 1970, earned a law degree from USC, became a Gardena City Councilman in 1976, serving until 1980, and was appointed by Governor Gray Davis to the Los Angeles Superior Court bench in 2002. As a former paratrooper, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Honorable Judge Vincent Okamoto.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm pleased to be here, and I want to thank Councilman Rodney Tanaka and the City of Gardena for inviting me to join you this morning. As I look around, I see a number of Vietnam veterans. You know, the young men that America sent off to war in the 1960s and early 70s, they're not young anymore. Hairlines have receded, waistlines have expanded, and we're all in our 70s. So I want to share with you a story about another overweight, older, out-of-shape Vietnam veteran. He suffered a massive heart attack after a 50-year love affair with Ham. He was rushed to the hospital, and while on the operating table, he had an out-of-body experience. He looked up and he had a vision of St. Peter hovering over him. He looked up and said, "Is it my time, sir?" And St. Peter said, "No, you've got another 20 years to live." Well, the bypass operation was a success. So the elated veteran decided that he was going to turn his life around. When he left the hospital, he went to a plastic surgeon and had a facelift. He went to a dentist and had his teeth whitened and straightened. He went to a hair salon and had his white hair dyed black. He joined a gym, exercised every day, swore off ham and red meat, jogged every morning, and lost 47 pounds. Several months later, while on his morning jog, he was struck and killed by a bus. When he got to heaven, he went up to St. Peter and said, "Hey, you said I had another 20 years to live. How come you didn't save me from that bus?" St. Peter looked at him and said, "Sorry, man, I didn't recognize you." Ladies and gentlemen, someone once said that memories are the bridge that allow us to span the gap of time and reconnect with significant events and special people in our past. Cherished images of bygone days that invoke a smile and engender feelings of joy and happiness. But as we treasure memories of the good days, lurking in the recesses of our minds are darker visions that we cannot totally repress. Memories of hurtful events and bad times. For those who lived through the 1960s and early 70s, the Vietnam War was such a bad time. Vietnam was one of America's longest and controversial wars. For over a decade, America involved itself in Vietnam, and that involvement divided this country like nothing since our own Civil War. Contentious arguments over the necessity and morality of the war destroyed friendships, pitted father against sons, saw student demonstrations, shut down colleges and universities, engendered bitter debates in the halls of Congress, and often led to violence and bloody riots in the streets. Every night, the 6 o'clock news brought bloody images of the fighting in Vietnam into the living rooms of America. The war seemed like an interminable, unstoppable program, dragging on year after year like some horrible plague that the government was unwilling or unable to solve. Over time, many Americans, frustrated and angry over the seemingly endless war in Southeast Asia, began unfairly to blame the war on the warriors. Young soldiers returning from Vietnam were not welcomed back by a grateful nation, but instead, too often were met with cold indifference or overt hostility. Some people shouted obscenities at them and called them drug addict and baby killer, or fools for having served. The returning veteran became scapegoats for the unpopular war. They became painful reminders of the bad episode in our history that the country wanted to forget, as if by ignoring them they could somehow blot out the bad times of the Vietnam War. Vietnam became a taboo subject. It was not a topic for polite conversation. It was like talking about cancer at a dinner table, or having a crazy uncle locked up in the basement, too embarrassing and shameful to discuss or acknowledge publicly. Even family members and close friends seemed to treat them with an embarrassed silence. So many veterans responded to society's silence with a silence of their own. They took off their uniforms as quickly as they could. They buried their medals in the bottom of a drawer. And repressing their very real need to talk about and analyze what had been the most eventful period in their lives. Instead, they quietly went into a self-imposed exile in the very country that had sent them off to war. They tried to get on with their lives. Most succeeded. Some didn't. And the Vietnam veterans kept their silence for more than a decade. But beginning in the late 70s, a small core group of Vietnam veterans came together and decided if the country failed to remember and honor their comrades, those who had died in Vietnam, that they would do so on their own. That core group reached out to other Vietnam veterans and their families, and in 1978 began a national fundraising campaign to erect a memorial honoring their war dead. Within 4 years, without any government funding, they raised over $9 million. A dozen design proposals were reviewed before selecting one submitted by Maya Lin, a 20-year-old Asian American architectural student at Yale University. It was a unique concept, but elegant in its simplicity. A memorial wall composed of 70 black granite panels inscribed with the names of over 58,200 Americans who died in the Vietnam War and those who were listed as missing in action. On November the 12th, 1982, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated in Washington, D.C. I was present at that dedication, along with 30,000 other veterans, their families, and loved ones. Some veterans came wearing remnants of old jungle fatigues. Some came in jeans or work clothes. Some came in three-piece suits. Some came in wheelchairs. And on that day, many battle-hardened veterans unashamedly cried as he looked upon the wall. Those veterans reached out and touched the names of their friends who had died. They shook hands and embraced, saying, "Welcome home," the greeting that was denied them when they returned from Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen, there's an evocative, haunting transformation that occurs for the veterans who come to the wall. On the polished granite surface, they see a reflection of themselves staring back at them, as if they too are embedded in the wall and are once again united with their fallen comrades. And it's important to remember that unwritten alongside each of those 500 or 58,200 plus names are the names of mothers and fathers, wives and sweethearts, whose families and whose lives were shattered by the death of their loved ones. Ladies and gentlemen, since its dedication in 1982, the wall has become one of the most visited memorials in Washington. It provides a place where parents can come and know their sons are remembered and honored and that we share the pain of their loss. It provides a place where wives, family, and sweethearts may come and commune with those who died and to think about what was and what might have been. It's not a glorification of war, but a personal reminder to the people and government of this nation of the terrible price we pay when we send our young people off to war. For the Vietnam veterans, it's become a place of healing, an affirmation that courage and loyalty, even when exhibited in a prolonged and controversial war, are worthy of respect. Beginning in the late 90s, several veterans groups created what has come to be known as the moving wall, a 3/4 scale down replica of the actual memorial, enabling those who are unable to travel to Washington to see, feel, and experience the wall. In the last 20 years, the moving wall has been displayed in over 600 towns and cities. I want to close by sharing a story with you. Many years ago, my family went on vacation to Washington. And after we visited the obligatory monuments and museums, we went to the wall. I had been there several times before, and each time I see the names of the 19 men that I had served with, 2 of whom saved my life, I tear up. My son was 8 years old at the time, and he'd never seen me cry before, and it disturbed him. And even though he was only 8 years old, when I explained to him that every name on that wall was a young American killed in Vietnam, he was stunned. As we walked back to the parking lot, he grabbed my hand, he looked up to me, and he said, "Dad, why did we fight the Vietnamese?" Well, historians and scholars are still trying to come up with a definitive answer to that question. And all I could say was, "I don't know, son." And then he said, "Why did you have to go off to fight when Scott's dad and Alex's father didn't have to?" And once again, I said, "I don't know, son." And then finally, he looked up at me and said, "When I grew up to be a man, will I have to fight in a war?" And I looked at him and I said, "I don't know, son. I hope not." Ladies and gentlemen, the wonder of this wall is that 58,000 names are not a statistic, but are people who were like us, young people who wanted to live out their lives, young people who had families who loved them, and their lives were cut short by the tragic war in Vietnam. I would hope that in the future, every president of the United States, before he or she sends off our young men to fight in another war, come to this wall, walk along it, look at the thousands upon thousands of names that are on it, and then reconsider before he sends our young people off to fight. And if by doing so, it makes it just a little bit harder for our country to ever again send more people out to fight and die on foreign soil, then I think the Vietnam Memorial's done a good thing. To all here, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I wish each one of you good health, good fortune, Godspeed.
Let's have one more round of applause for Judge Okamoto. Thank you for your service to our country, sir, and for your continued service here in California. Next up, I'd like to bring up State Senator Steve Bradford, who now represents the 35th Senatorial District, also a graduate of Gardena High School. He also served as a Gardena City Councilman from 1997 to 2009, and then as our Assembly member from 2009 to 2014. Please welcome Assemblyman Steve Bradford. State Senator Steve Bradford.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Judge Okamoto. I have been asked to bring remarks, but I think everything has been said. It is hard to follow those comments from someone who was there, but it's truly an honor to be here and participate in this wall tribute to the men and women who fought in Vietnam in what many consider the forgotten war. And as the forgotten war, many have considered those men and women forgotten. But this wall not only memorializes those who lost their lives, but also exemplifies those who came back home from an unjust war. And we often say there's nothing good that comes from a war. But there's one thing that has always been associated with the Vietnam War, and I look at it as a good thing. Look around you today. Look to your left. Look to your right. Look behind you. The Vietnam War represented the diversity of this country because it was the first war where blacks, Latinos, Asians, and whites fought side by side. Despite the fact that our military being integrated in 1955, they fought in segregated platoons. The Vietnam War was the first time we fought side by side, and we put down our differences and realized we are our brother's keepers. We are the same. It was the first time that Southerners heard R&B music from Motown, and Midwest folks from the big cities heard Southern music in the twang of Tammy Wynette and Conway Twitty. So if it was anything that this war did, and I think it's fitting that we have this program on the 50th anniversary just a few days ago of Martin Luther King assassination, because many feel in this country, as I do, he was assassinated for his vocal outspokenness on the Vietnam War, on the unjust of this Vietnam War. So outside of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, I think the Vietnam War did more for this country in removing racial barriers and stereotypes. So again, I thank the men and women who have fought, who sacrificed their life. This is a healing wall. I had two uncles who served in Vietnam. One was able to visit this wall before they passed, and I heard the stories. One of my uncles did 2 tours in Vietnam, and it was a thankless war. Again, as the judge stated, many of the men and women came home and were ashamed to wear their uniforms. Despite fighting for this country, they were ashamed to wear their uniforms because they were attacked, they were spat upon, they were cursed. But this wall has brought pride. And I ran into a veteran a couple of months ago who now wears his uniform because of this healing wall. So I was honored to have it in our state capitol a few years ago, and I want to commend the city of Gardena, the mayor, and the great Parks and Rec staff for bringing this to the city of Gardena, a city that has always been diverse, that's always been ahead of the time, a city that had the first Martin Luther King parade west of the Mississippi. So I think it's fitting that we're all here today. I thank you for this opportunity, and I too say God bless the men and women who not only sacrificed in Vietnam, but sacrificed every day for this country. Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to bring up our local assembly member. He represents the 66th Assembly District, which includes much of the South Bay and includes Gardena. Please welcome Assembly Member Al Muratsuchi.
Good morning, Gardena. It is really, truly my honor to be here, to be able to join everyone, to honor all of our veterans, especially our Vietnam War veterans, and to say thank you. My name is Al Muratsuchi, and I was just a 10-year-old boy when the Vietnam War ended. So I don't have a lot of memories of all the conflict and divisiveness that our nation went through. But I did have, of course, my own perspective because I was a military brat. My father worked for the United States Army for over 30 years, and so I grew up on military bases. At the time during the Vietnam War, on bases in Okinawa, bases like Camp Buckner, Gardena Air Base. I don't know if anyone in the audience had stopped over on the way to Vietnam or stopped over in Okinawa to or from the Vietnam War, but that was one of the stopping areas common for our Vietnam War veterans. And so for me, growing up on the military base, we've always respected and loved our soldiers because they were our fathers, they were our mothers, they were our brothers and sisters. And it's so great to be able to see that this great city of Gardena has that same patriotism, that same respect, that same love for our veterans. And so I join all of the speakers in thanking the city of Gardena. Thank you, Judge Okamoto. You are a true American hero. Thank you all for honoring and thanking our veterans.
Next up, I'd like to bring up another local mayor, Al Robles from the city of Carson.
Thank you. Good morning. I apologize for my casualness, but I was coming from an event in my city. We had an autism event and a Special Olympics event, ironically, at Veterans Park in our city, because our city, too, pays great tribute to our veterans. I know I wake up every day knowing that I could not serve as the mayor of the great city of Carson. I would not be where I am if it wasn't for the service of our men and women in the armed services. So thank you. Thank you for all you do. I want to give special recognition to the city of Gardena for putting this fabulous event together. Madam Mayor, awesome job. Let's give her another round of applause. Senator Bradford also represents the city of Carson, so thank you for all the great work you do. And while I like my Congresswoman, Nanette Barragan, I love Congresswoman Maxine Waters. So I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you to all the veterans for your service.
Now, at this time, I'd like to bring up Steve Moriyama. Steve, oh, here he comes. Steve is a commander of the Nisei Veterans Post 1961. And he had a lot to do with bringing the wall here, helping with the escort, and just making sure that this event would be a successful event. So please welcome.
Good morning. As you heard, my name is Steve Moriyama, and I served the Gardena Nisei Veterans VFW Post 1961 as their commander. I would first like to thank the Honorable Congresswoman Maxine Waters for her vision of bringing the wall to the city of Gardena. To the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, we know that your hard work and efforts do not go unnoticed. The staff, Tim, Kaylee, and Bud, you guys are outstanding and are very appreciated. To my fellow veterans, VFW Post, the Motorcycle Veterans Escort, that was an outstanding job. The Gold Star families, the volunteers from near and far, Gardena High School JROTC, Redondo Union High JROTC, North Torrance High JROTC, Gardena High School, Perry Middle School, Denker Elementary, various police agencies, and the City of Gardena staff. Without the dedication and hard work of everyone, this event would not have been so wonderful. I really say thank you so much. A special thank you to Gardena Police Department and Lieutenant Vincent Osorio and Sergeant Rodney Gonzalez for dedication in arranging our mighty flag to be raised and lowered daily since the wall arrived in Gardena. Thank you again to Congresswoman Maxine Waters for flying this very flag over the United States Capitol in honor of the visit from the Wall That Heals in Gardena and presenting it to us on Tuesday to fly proudly this week. I would like to ask all of my fellow Vietnam veterans to please stand if you're able and be recognized. We thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for your service that you have always provided, and we welcome you home. May God bless.
Folks, just in closing, we want to thank you again for coming to experience the wall. We hope you're able to get some family members here to also experience the wall with you, and that it works some of its magic. And once again, we'd like to thank you for coming out. We're going to close the program out with a benediction, and this will be given by Terry Williams. He's a retired Army First Sergeant, and he's with Gardena High School. So, Terry?
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. May the Lord, our God, bless us all present here to memorialize those who lived and died to preserve liberty and freedom in our nation and in the world. And may the Lord, our God, remember all those who sacrificed, gave this nation its greatest progress and riches. May our memory and all of those who served in the armed forces be an honorable one, full of thanksgiving to the Lord, and remember with much love and mercy those who died in the service of our country, whether on the air or on the land or in the sea. Be with us all and provide us with traveling mercy as we return to our homes. Amen. 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 Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Terry. Once again, folks, we'd like to thank everyone who came out today. We'd like to thank everyone who participated in bringing the wall to us in order to help us experience some of its magic. Please take the time to experience the wall. Please thank a veteran. Have a great weekend, folks. God bless you all, and God bless America.